Welcome to the recap. This is week 2 of It's Personal. I'm so excited that you're joining us. This week we continued our series of It's Personal. Last week we talked about names and why they matter. So this week we're going to continue our discussion on a personal faith and a personal God. We were talking, and I wonder if any of you have ever found out not necessarily a secret, but something about a friend that surprised you or shocked you. I remember when I was living in Alabama, I had this friend and we were still getting to know each other, but I thought I knew him pretty well. And we were talking one day, and all of a sudden, this conversation came out of nowhere, and I realized that he, like myself, was a massive SpongeBob fan, and it surprised me in just the best way. I was like, "Wait, you love SpongeBob? I love SpongeBob," and we bonded even more over our love of SpongeBob. As a matter of fact, he ended up moving away, and as like a moving away gift, I got him an entire like 2 or 3 seasons of SpongeBob, and we just spent an entire night of just binging SpongeBob and eating pizza and hanging out. And chances are you probably had a friend who you thought you knew everything about, and then you find out something surprising, maybe a song or some music that they're interested in that you didn't expect them to like, something like that. And we all have things that we care about, things that matter to us, that are personal to us. And we just assume, I think, sometimes that because it's personal to us, that it's probably personal to everybody else. And then we realize, oh, not everybody knows about this or cares about it in the way that I do. And in the same token, I think we sometimes, or even most of the times, think that we have everybody else figured out, right? We make assumptions on people based on things that we hear or see, or one conversation with somebody, and a lot of times we try and put them in a box, and we feel like we have them sort of figured out. And that can lead to some troubling things sometimes. Is one, it can cause us to miss out on who that person really is. And the other thing that those assumptions do is sometimes they make us feel like we don't fit in because we make assumptions about everybody else around us and about ourselves. And it can make us feel like we don't fit in, like we're isolated, lonely, like nobody really gets us. And that's why I love this story of Zacchaeus that we are diving into throughout this series. Zacchaeus was a tax collector. He worked for a foreign government that was oppressive and taking money from people that didn't want to give it to them. And Zacchaeus was an outsider in his own town with his own people because he worked in this job of collecting taxes, and most likely, honestly, he probably cheated some people out of some money because that's a lot what a lot of tax collectors did those days. So he was not a well-liked guy, and he didn't quite fit in anywhere. He wasn't a Roman citizen and wouldn't be accepted by them, but he was also disliked by his own people. And so that's the guy that we're talking about here. And it sort of sets the scene for what's happening because Jesus comes to town and everybody wants to see him. They want to see him perform a miracle or, heal somebody or raise somebody from the dead. Like all these things that he's been going around doing, they are gathering to see him do something. And here comes Zacchaeus running out ahead of people, climbing a tree because he was too short to see over the crowd just to get a glimpse of this guy. And what does Jesus do? He looks up, he sees Zacchaeus, and he calls him out by name. And he says, "Zacchaeus, climb down at once. I must come and eat with you." So Jesus goes and just invites himself over to this guy's house, which seems a little bit forward. But in those days, that was actually a great honor. They viewed house guests with great honor and respect, and people that came over to your house were considered friends, right? Like not just anybody came over. And so here is Jesus, this famous kind of respected guy at this point, and he looks up and he sees Zacchaeus, who everybody knew who this guy was. They didn't like him, and Jesus calls him by name and invites him over to his house. And I'm sure there was shock and gossip and like, why would he go eat with him? Oh my gosh, not Zacchaeus, anybody but Zacchaeus. Like, Jesus, you don't know what you're doing. This guy's terrible, right? And probably even Zacchaeus was shocked. Like, wow, why does he want to come to my house? Like, Jesus is all about helping the poor and justice and all those things. And I actually make people poor and work for the Roman government. And I'm sure there was a perception about Zacchaeus. This is what I love about Jesus. He saw right through that. He didn't let what other people thought about Zacchaeus affect the way that he thought about Zacchaeus and the way that he saw him. In that moment, Jesus saw what really mattered to Zacchaeus. Not the perception of what people thought about him, which I would bet most people would think that, money and power matter to him and that's about it. But Jesus knew that Zacchaeus had some things that mattered to him more, like belonging, being accepted, being seen, and being known. And how do I know Zacchaeus wanted those things? Because we all do. All people want to be seen and known, to belong and be accepted. And here's the great thing about this story is Jesus does the same thing for us that he does for Zacchaeus. Jesus sees beyond what other people see, and he knows what really, really matters to us. And that's why faith and this whole relationship with Jesus thing is personal. It's personal because he knows your name, and it's personal because Jesus knows what matters to you. He knows what matters to you. He doesn't just care about religious stuff. He cares about what's important to you. It's not just Bible reading, he cares about your grades. He doesn't just care about you staying pure sexually, he cares about your dating life and how you do that. He doesn't just care about your church attendance, he cares about your anxiety. He cares about your relationship with your parents and your friendships. He cares about those things because he cares about what matters to you. And because Jesus knows and cares about what matters to us, it should change the way we view God. I mean, think about it. We have a personal God who, in an age where a lot of times we feel like nobody gets us, he gets us. And he cares about what matters to us. So, what do we do with that? Well, the first thing that we can do is talk to Jesus about what matters to us. I mean, have like prayer, you're allowed to have open, honest conversations in prayer. You can talk to Jesus about exactly what matters to you. You can talk to him about your frustrations. It doesn't have to be this surface level thing where you say, bless me, bless my family, bless the world, amen. Like you can have real personal prayers and conversations with Jesus. It's one of the great parts about the Christian faith. And then the other thing that we do with this is this: talk to others about what matters to them. Because in the same way as we talked about last week, there are people around you that will never know there is a personal God who cares about what matters to them until you care about what matters to them. The way you take interest in another person can totally affect the way they view God and Christians and Christianity in general. So, as you go through this, I want you to think about somebody who you think you have all figured out. Maybe it's somebody you've never even had a real conversation with, but you think you know everything about them. Put that person in your mind. And this week, I challenge you to go have a conversation with them and figure out something that actually matters to them. And remember, it's personal because Jesus knows what matters to you. And that's a fact that we can take great heart in, knowing that we have a personal God that cares about us and sees us and knows what matters. So let's go do that for someone else.